Ethos DNA. I'm going to have to at some point stop and take a quick little math break and see if I can figure out how many guests this year are returning guests versus how many are new guests, because it's been a high number of returning guests. Today's no different. We have Jamie MacDonald here today, representing your project Paranormal Arson.
That is correct.
So welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And I will say, I said it before we hit record, but as of right now, while we're recording, it's your birthday. So happy birthday.
Thank you.
And I was checking out the new album. So it just came out. So perfect timing for us to sit down and chat.
Yeah, just dropped yesterday, April 4th, today, April 5th. So
perfect.
I don't know when I don't know when the episode's coming out, but just so people have context.
Yeah, it'll probably be a couple weeks after now. So the album's been out for a couple weeks. So now that you're having phenomenal streaming numbers 2 weeks into the release, we'll just talk like it's the future. But I'm sure some people do remember when you were on before. You're one of the early guests for swinging by here in the apartment studio as well. So I do thank you for the early on support. I like to acknowledge that when I can.
Yeah, same. Probably one of the few media outlets that actually gave me a little bit of time to talk about my weird, punky, extreme metal stuff.
Without getting too far into genre, because like you're already there and I'll immediately get lost in subgenres. But as far as your sound, I'm sure we covered it a little bit in the original interview, but for the benefit of new to you people as well, as far as influences going into that, I think that's probably, if I were to describe the project to somebody that didn't have the opportunity to hear it. I mean, obviously, go out to a streaming service and go listen to it. That's the easiest way. But there's a little bit of different influences that could be pulled into that. And you've got like, as far as somebody digesting it, it's got like a noise level to it that kind of gives it a cinematic type vibe just to listen to it. So it immediately kind of pulls you in as more of a concept album. So
and like I don't know if I'd necessarily say like it's like one story as a concept album, but it is like there's an overarching theme in the whole thing. And like I do kind of like, especially the noise stuff. I had a couple of those noise interludes where it's not even just built with songs, where it's just noise with like I put like the text to speech, like almost like they're like little emergency alerts.
Yeah.
Almost to kind of like keep the flow of the, not necessarily story, but the kind of the thematic flow going. Yeah, it like that was all kind of by design for sure.
Definitely in my own past experience and where we're of different age groups, I may just be completely out in left field. Sometimes I do this when I think that there might be some type of influence. The artist I'm talking to is legitimately unaware that there was something that preceded them. Not usually a surprise, but maybe unknown. But I'm assuming you would be familiar. Bands like Megadeth and Anthrax in the past have incorporated that type of news alert in kind of like little breakdowns in their songs. There might be like a guitar solo or a drum thing, and then you get the announcement or the alert, and it kind of blends in with the overall theme of the narrative for that song, at least.
It's funny thing that you say Anthrax, because one thing that I kind of like to look up on, I'm going off on a tangent right now, but one thing I like going on up on YouTube is like emergency alerts going wrong, and like certain like sometimes like it gets activated by accident, or somebody hacks into the system and like activates it. And there was like that emergency alert. I think it's from the song "Fight 'Em Till You Can't." It's like a
Yes.
zombie apocalypse thing or whatever. And somebody took the script from that and activated the emergency alert system. And it was just like some daytime, like Jerry Springer or Maury Povich or whatever. And like the bodies of the dead are please take shelter.
Insanity. I love those stories, but at the time, I'm sure they're not so funny for the people that are witnessing it. But it's just amazing
Yeah.
that it
I
just
wouldn't want to
bleeds
be
over.
in the TV station whenever that was happening, but like just sitting, but like 15 years later or whatever it was that had happened, kind of look back at it and laugh. It's almost like the Max Headroom incident type thing.
Yeah,
There's just a buddy with the Max Headroom mask and he's just spitting out absolute gobbledygook and the girl like spanking him like live, like Doctor Who.
yeah. I've
Supposed to
seen
be
all that weird
saying.
stuff too. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird that it even happened at all, but it's happened.
Yeah, for sure. I love looking all that stuff up.
So where does that come from as far as what you're like with the last album, you kind of had a same kind of theme as far as like it's almost
Yeah,
like a post-apocalyptic or on the before it's the apocalyptic.
yeah,
So where does
yeah.
that come from as an influence or where I guess more so, why do you have that as an overarching theme? Is that just what Paranormal Arson is as a project?
No, not necessarily, but like you said, I did a cover of the Terrorizer song, "Fear of Napalm," and I put one of those in there. Uh, but I just started like there's the this like whole YouTube like community of people making mock
Hmm.
emergency alerts. And I just kind of started going down the rabbit hole, and like some of them are like totally outlandish, like zombie type deals or
Yeah.
like whatever. Or but some of them are also like kind of realistic and like this is actually kind of scary. And like I just kind of got like the outlandish ones were absolutely hilarious and
Hmm.
made me laugh, and then the more realistic ones kind of struck a chord. I was like, this, especially nowadays, you're like, this could kind
Oh
of
yeah.
possibly happen. So this is a little bit scary. So
CDC has a zombie preparedness portion of their website too. And as much as it's a joke, it's written legit, and like if it were
yeah,
a thing, then that is what you would do. So it is it's there's definitely a bleed. I'm sure there's always been that sense of dread kind of hanging over Western society, definitely. But the last few years, I think that's kind of built up a little bit too. So I'm sure that
yeah,
those communities are thriving.
yeah, exactly. And like just how south everything has been going, that was kind of the whole theme of that. It's not so much just like the emergency alerts by themselves, but just like the
Hmm.
whole like things spiraling downward was kind of the whole arc of the album. And that's kind of why it ends with like almost like the crescendo of that.
Yeah.
And
And now
hopefully something like that never happens, but that's just kind of where the story of the album went.
I find I mean, we're referring to it as noise, but that kind of vibe I find too, where I would have probably heard that in like Nine Inch Nails. When you listen to a full album, there's a lot of that type of thing, and it
Yeah.
creates an anxious tension
Yeah.
that kind of once it induces that in the listener, then that kind of opens your ear to something different with the rest of the music as well. So just the combination together, I know that for some people it's a little hard to digest right off the bat, but if you let yourself get into that vibe, it sucks you in to the point that like next thing you know, you're just listening to the entire album.
Yeah. Exactly. And that like Nine Inch Nails is 100% like if you listen to it on face value, you might not be able to tell, but like even just like in the drum, like this time around, like I didn't try to make the drum sound realistic. Like it's pure distorted drum machine nonsense. So like if you start listening to that stuff, like you can tell I'm a big Nine Inch Nails fan, a big KMFDM fan.
Yes.
I like Aphex Twin stuff like that. The Prodigy. I'm not super into like electronic music, but a lot of like
Hmm.
the industrial and some like the UK big beat, I think they called it, is what the
Oh,
Prodigy was. I don't
like
know.
Atari Teenage Riot and stuff like that too.
Yeah, like Chemical Brothers. Like I do have an appreciation for that stuff. And like you can kind of tell that
Hmm.
that kind of got incorporated into it whenever you start listening to it. And I do like even like the guitar tones, like I don't try to make them nice. Like
Hmm.
it's just fuzz and HM2 chainsaw like blended together or just like scooped chunk like oftentimes it's layered on top of each other to the point where you can't even recognize what is what. Like it
Hmm.
just sounds like a big mess of white noise that is happens to be playing a really gross melody, for lack of a better term. And like I actually got a like I sent it out to a couple different publications, and one publication legitimately thought I sent him the title track, and he thought that it was synths.
Oh yeah.
He legitimately just in case he's watching this now, it's not synths. It's my old uh, Strat copy, single coil Strat copy that I got in high school that is
Cool.
tuned to G standard.
Well, and that's something I kind of want to get into too. Like outside of like you said, like using text to speech for some of the emergency alert stuff. And like outside of that, like what all goes in, like this is a Jamie project for the
Yep.
most part. Like so like it's you, but to layer all those sounds, I can understand, like even though I don't do really mixing per se, I know enough to like stack audio tracks and manipulate stuff. How do you go about it as a project where it's all like I can almost see where if a bunch of like-minded people got in a room and started kind of working together, making a soundscape that each person's layer kind of builds into it. But when it's all coming from one mind, I don't know how I'd begin. So, do you start with kind of a vision conceptually of like the narrative kind of thing, or are you kind of going with a sound that you're kind of
Yeah,
building
more
up?
so that. Like
Yeah.
it's more like almost the same as last time. The song and each song starts with a riff. So it's basically I have this riff, I know how I want this to sound. So then once I go to record it, now I'm starting to create whatever guitar tone that I want. And typically, whenever I'm recording guitars, I'm doing bare minimum quad track, and then I usually, unless there's like vocals or whatever, if I'm not trying to emphasize the guitars, I won't. But if it's a spot that I want to sound big, I'll put another fifth
Hmm.
track right down the center. And usually, left side, right side, and the center will all sound totally different. Like, uh, or I'll do like layer one will sound totally different from layer two, and then the center will sound different. And usually the center one I try to make like really like almost bad sounding.
Hmm.
Like there's a couple times where I used like I have an old Epiphone 10-watt practice amp, and I used the headphone output, and that was my center track.
Oh,
And like you
okay.
can't even hear it,
Yeah.
but it just kind of adds to like this layer of like top end like staticky grit. I got that from I was watching it was Machine Head recording through the ashes of empires, and like
Okay.
typically they like they're not they don't record their stuff like they're 5150 and Tube Screamer band and always have been. But there was like they used Line 6 flex tone, just greasy solid state amp as like a dubbing layer. And I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of a cool idea. So like if I'm already at that level, what do I use as my dubbing layer? And like it was like that or like Metal Zone by itself with no IR or something like that. Boss XD extortion and yeah, and like even like the main layers is just like fuzz like I'll have one layer that's fuzz or chainsaw, and then the second layer will either be like a scoopy uh VH140C type sound, or like I have like a Marshall Plexi uh plugin that I'll use. I don't have I wish I had a Marshall Plexi at home, but like I might use that plugin where and just like set it to like moderate, like almost like an AC/DC type sound. So it
Hmm.
just adds a little bit of like clarity to the fuzzy, gross madness.
And so you like to experiment a lot as well,
Yeah,
which is obvious just by all the technique that's going into it. But I'm also curious as far as visual elements. I know that you have immediate aspirations of getting out there for a music video as well.
yeah.
So, how do you go about as far as conceptualizing the visual element to go with it? Like, you still have this project yet to come,
Yeah.
but how, like, when you're creating this, do you already kind of have, because the narrative lends itself to, like I said, a cinematic vibe, do you already have a visual in your head when you're like creating these songs?
No, not necessarily. Like it'll typically come after. And like
Hmm.
I'm not gonna say anything about music video stuff
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that'll probably come at a later date. But
sure.
uh like as far as like one thing visually I like to do is like subversion of expectations. Like I don't like doing your typical extreme metal cover, like the
Hmm.
cavern and all that stuff. And like this album's probably the closest that I got to it, and it's more of a punk cover. Like the guy that I got to do it, Irfan Ramadan. He's done a couple like pretty big punk uh covers, and he's done a few punk bands around here as well. Uh, but like other than that, like if you look at some of the singles, like the Leech single, it's just like no name. That just because it's kind of like it's about like Galen Weston and grocery CEOs leeching off of all of us and all that. So it's just a looks like a no name product. Uh, the hook, line, and sinker one from the like that single actually released last year. That's how long that I've been recording the album. But like that looks like a Fisher Price toy set, and
Yeah.
uh just like I like doing that like kind of subversion of expectations and not doing what's expected of your true metal throw up
Yes.
at all time. Like why am I gonna like there's not I'm not bulldoze, I'm not a New York hardcore beat down band. Like I'm one dude in like by myself and with my beautiful girlfriend and my dog who are
Yes.
beside me napping. Like I'm not gonna pretend like I'm that. I like yeah, I like gnarly music, but I also like being goofy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
that kind of like infiltrates its way in.
Yeah, I've seen it in a few different, you don't see it, it's not common, or it wouldn't be subverting anything, but I do see it in a couple of different avenues as well, where you're seeing some of the heavier stuff still acknowledging exactly what it is, but maybe not leaning so much on the stereotypes and pulling in something a little bit more light and fluffy for some of the graphical elements and stuff too. So
Yeah,
I can see yourself leaning that way, and that's probably one of the things that appealed to me in the first place. But I'm also curious, you're still in the same area, so like you're still Antigonish County, and
yep,
I do see you out there quite often at shows as I'm
yep.
floating around quite a bit too. So you do get out there quite a bit. Is that for the music side of hunting down these good shows, or is this your powerlifting bleeding over into and getting you in different communities?
Ah, I'm in both really.
Yeah,
So yeah, just getting out of the house is always good. I'm naturally an introvert, so just not burying myself in my basement
yeah.
is always a good thing. But yeah, I love going to see live music and all that stuff. And whenever I'm not competing, I even like going to powerlifting meets, and like people have seen me do like announcing and stuff like that, which that's
Cool.
actually pretty, like it's not the same technique as extreme, like it's not,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like the projection and all that stuff, like it's actually kind of a cool vocal practice too.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely see how they would complement each other for sure. So for anyone that wants to go out there and listen to, well, the old album and the new album, but more specifically the new album, where should people look for it? I know it's everywhere. Do you have a
Yeah.
chosen platform that you prefer?
Whichever one you prefer, really. I like Bandcamp because it's not as scummy as the
Mm-hmm.
other one. So I their paranormal arson 902.bandcamp.com would be the link for that. Uh,
Perfect.
but if you use Spotify, it's on Spotify. If you use Apple Music, it's on Apple Music. If you use Deezer, whatever Deezer is, it's on there. It's on Amazon, Tidal, whatever.
Being that I'm in YouTube a lot,
Oh, YouTube
creating
Music,
content,
yeah, yeah,
I noticed it was in there as well.
yeah. YouTube Music, it's on there.
Yeah,
And by YouTube Music, I mean either like the platform of YouTube Music, or if you go to the Paranormal Arson YouTube channel, it's there. Either one.
yeah. So if you can find it everywhere. There's no excuse to not be streaming it.
Exactly. Give it a spin.
And as far as like we've talked about this before, like where it's you, do you have any aspirations of turning this into some type of live performance at some point?
Not this, I don't think. I have actually have been jamming with somebody uh as of late,
Hmm.
just whenever we can. Like it's hard to as 30 somethings to find time, but
Oh
I
yeah,
have been dealing with somebody. It hasn't been like this style. It's been more like almost sludgy, noise rocky, kind of almost like
cool.
Unsane type vibe or whatever. It's been more like that. But yeah, I'd like to play live with something. But as far as like just how weird and complex, as like surprisingly complex the paranormal Arson stuff is, like I would need to hire like six people,
Yeah, yeah.
and I don't know if it's worth it to do that. Either that, or I get a backing track and just stand there with my microphone like a dummy, and I don't think anybody wants to see that.
Yeah, I could see it almost being maybe down the road when you have some video to accompany it too, or even with some of the graphics for the individual single stuff. I could almost see it being like not even necessarily a performance piece, but like a visual, like
Yeah,
to actually like have a projector and some speakers, just for people to kind of experience it in a different way.
yeah, true. Never
It's
know.
just, I think it's that cinematic element that keeps pulling me back in, and that's I want to experience it visually in some manner. So definitely, I'm going to be following along from the sidelines to see where you're going with this project too. And do you have aspirations to continue it? Like you just released this album, but do you already have other pieces kind of cooking that you might want to follow up with a third, fourth, fifth at some point?
Eventually. I don't really have anything cooking right now. Like
Yeah.
whenever like this was kind of a monster, so it took quite a bit to get it done while still balancing
Yeah.
regular life.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's nice to kind of just have it done and not have anything cooking for a little bit. So
Yeah,
eventually I'll get
absolutely.
that. I'll probably start going again, but uh, I'm right now. My big plan is going down south with my lady and relaxing with one or 17 gin and tonics.
There you go. That sounds amazing. So definitely in the future, keep us up to date as you have with any new developments in that camp. And I'll be keeping an eye out for you at any recent shows or anything coming up. So if you have a chance to listen to it today, I definitely recommend anybody watching now go out and take a stream for yourself. But for anyone that's brand new and they're already here watching this episode, is there a track from the new album that you would like to kind of play off with today?
Yeah, the title track, which is a longer version of the title track. The album's name is Noxious. The title track is A Bloated Sack of Noxious Gas and Bile, which is very friendly, nice little title. And if anybody was, it's not necessarily like literal. It's more or less kind of lampooning like your Ben Shapiro and like those kind of guys, Tucker Carlson, like you're just blowhard, uh, loudmouth, arsehole, talking head type thing. Like it's basically like kind of using that imagery to describe them and what they're trying to do to gain a following.
I could definitely hear elements of ministry influence in
Yeah,
in the concept there for sure.
yeah,
So
yeah. Big ministry fan. Yeah, a lot like the first album is basically just like almost pure death metal.
yeah,
This time around, it's very like it's still rooted in death metal, but it's very industrial metal. I got a lot of Ministry, a lot of Godflesh,
yeah,
a lot of Pitch Shifter. Like that, it's all that stuff is just ingrained
yeah.
in
No,
in
I love it. That's definitely something that anybody that's chatted with me about genres on the East Coast off camera, I've been looking for more industrial influences because I know there's a lot of us out there that listen to it. So I was surprised that there's not a lot of it in our region. But you're filling that gap for us right now, so I'm very happy to be part of promoting it to others, and I definitely want to see what you have next. But
yeah,
for
happy to fill
anyone
that
here,
gap.
yes, for anyone here today, we'll play off with. I'm just going to say Noxious because it's a lot
Yeah,
easier than the full title, and
100% fine.
we wish you a happy birthday 2 weeks ago for people that are watching this.
Thank you kindly.
See you soon.
Yeah.